Uh, I'm a baddie daddy, family first, chiseled to the core. Coming home to hear the footsteps running to the door. Living our lives to be a good hubby and a buddy. And hitting the gym so our bodies ain't never tubby. Crack a beer, throw it back, shoot the shit and letting go. It's baddie daddy, baby, sit back, enjoy the show.
Episode 15. Daddy.
Daddy.
Welcome back.
Yes, sir.
Joe,
What's up?
welcome on, man.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate you guys.
Nice to finally meet you.
Yeah, you too.
We've been in communication for a while. Haven't actually got to meet you face to face, but I'd say at least a year and a half communicating socially. I don't know, with Kevin, I think about the same, maybe.
I met Joe through some Facebook groups. Joe, for me, has been a long distance friend, if you will, through social media. Met him once briefly, but Joe is very involved in the dad community, which that's what we push here too.
Shout out.
Yeah. I think we have like minds there on building a community, an avenue for dads to go to. Yours is a different approach. Yours more, I think, involved, like hands-on, like interactions. Ours is just building a brand, having conversations. Ours is more like a podcast, right? And yours is like, hey guys, let's get together. And that's, I think, the biggest differences there. And I think you're doing a lot of good stuff. So DFW Dad Squad here in Dallas. So Joe, introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Talk about the Dad Squad.
Sweet. I'm Joe Crenshaw. Thanks, guys, for having me out, too. This is the fun stuff for me. I love getting to just get connected with you guys and dig into your stories. And that's what Dad Squad's about. Ultimately, like, sure, it's a digital community where we basically create a space for dads to connect to each other. And a lot of the goals of that, our culture and what we're trying to do, what we kind of represent, dads are isolated. Dads don't really have tons of support, both in our society and I would even say in our churches, that a lot of the times dads are just kind of looked at as semi-disposable. I don't want to use disposable as a harsh term because there's nuance and variances to that, but dads are expected to figure out and tough it up and be a man and power through. And a lot of the times they have to do that alone and without the support of a lot of brothers. One of our kind of primary philosophies actually stems from scripture. It's Ecclesiastes 4. It says 2 are better than 1 because they have a greater return for their work. If one falls, the other one can help him up, but pity the one who falls and has nobody to help him. And so we're having a lot of conversation. We built this community, DFW Dad Squad. In about 4 months, we got 5,500 dads all across the Metroplex. But we also want to have proximity relationships and not just digital relationships. There's value in that. Our dads are coming with crisis and things they're struggling with, and even fun things to do in the DFW area, even some professional service needs, things like that. But we also want events in proximity and community happening in proximity. So part of our brand is that we actually have our main DFW Dad Squad, but we're also creating groups in each city that is like Dad Squad Dallas and Dad Squad Mansfield and Dad Squad Frisco, because that actually cultivates, now we can actually hang out because DFW is a big place. Somebody up in Denton may not come down to Midlothian for a coffee in the middle of the day. So that just helps cultivate community inside of that. We like to have fun too. It's not just a place to be vulnerable. Men are asked to be stoic with their emotions and to suppress crisis or to suppress pain and not really expose those things to each other. And man, 5,500 dads, I don't think we can take all the credit for that. It's just that this is a need. This is obviously an apparent need that I don't really think that our culture does a good job of providing a space for. And that's why we kind of are at where we're at today with some of that. That's the gist of what we're trying to do.
So can I ask this question just to hearing your philosophy behind it? You think, and I hope this doesn't come off insensitive, do you think, and it kind of is going to go into your background a little bit more,
Sure.
but do you think is you being a single father stemmed a lot of this path that you're on to find like-minded individuals who are struggling with things as being a father, assuming you were formerly married, divorced? You don't have to go into detail on that. I don't want to misstep here, but is that a lot of the motivation? Man, there's a lot of other people that are going through my struggles as a single father. Like, why aren't we branching together more?
Yeah, I think we probably still would have done this if I were still married and not having to navigate the difficulty of divorce and single parenthood. but it's also a major part. So I don't want to pretend like it's not a part of this thing, because it's a major part of this thing. And you were saying, I feel like I can, when I'm in conversations with dads, I feel like I'm beginning to be able to almost finish their sentences for them, because a lot of dads are struggling with the same thing. And some of it's unrelated to divorce specifically or single parenting, but a lot of it is actually related because unfortunately dads are getting blasted out there. And a lot of it is through marriage and through divorce and through even the court system. Just the difficulty that dads have to navigate to be able to be a present father in their kids' lives, and how much fight they have to be able to even retain that in the midst of divorce. Even the most wonderful fathers. If you're a wonderful, committed, present, absolutely amazing father that's nurturing and loving, you can still be looked at by the system as something that's not in the best interest of the kids. And a lot of these dads are struggling with that. But there's also plenty of other dads who are struggling with just that, like fatherhood related things, or even things in their marriage, or manhood things, or professional work things. It's not just a place for divorced
Health
dads.
issues.
Health
like,
issues.
No man likes to go to the doctor.
Yeah.
No.
No, there's so many similarities in a lot of our stories. And so we're not trying to be a single dad or divorced dad's group. I think there's a lot of those, and that just speaks to what we're facing today. But that doesn't mean that's like exclusively a part of what we're trying to do per se. It does stem from a lot of our stories as well. Ladrell, my co-leader, co-founder, has walked through similar things as me, and is even still walking through some of that stuff. And so did it shape this? Not necessarily. Is it a part of it? For sure. Yeah.
I come from a divorce household. Just a couple things that you're saying, I witnessed my dad experience through that divorce. It wasn't a good divorce, and I don't know if any divorce is good, but you can have amicable separations and co-parent from afar and still be a team even though you're not a team.
Yeah.
But I come witnessing as a child growing up, you know that, being my friend as long as you have, having a stepdad who married your mom and having to balance that as a young boy, and
Yeah.
the territory and the protective things you hold dear to you as a kid, just trying to protect your father and distinguish the two. So yeah, I think it's a great message
Yeah.
overall. So I hope I didn't overstep with asking
No,
that question.
not at all. We can talk about all the things. I'm
Yeah,
certainly
yeah.
happy to.
We don't need to dive into the semantics of your past relationship, but
Yeah.
it's more about who you are today and what caused your goals to
Yeah.
drive the DFW Dad Squad, how we all came to meet. Because early on when we started Batty Daddy, you and Kevin met and you helped get our hats out there so that people knew a little bit more about us and what our message is
Yeah.
and what our brand is. I think everything you're doing is good.
I think something that you said speaks to a lot of what our goals are, because it could just be looked at as, oh, this is a place exclusively to build up dads. That's the starting point, because you just shared a story as a child from the perspective of a child who your experience was as a result of a difficult relationship with your parents. And so it starts with the dads, but our actual attempts to build up dads is actually to build up families, to build up marriages, to build up children, to strengthen those. Because honestly, because dads are asked to be stoic with their emotions, a lot of the times they're emotionally suppressed at home. And so they may not be available emotionally to wives, and they may not be available emotionally to children. And so if we can create a space where we can model that to each other, now it becomes a bit more comfortable, a bit more accepted, to where it can even influence their own homes as far as their relationships with their kids, their relationships with their wives. And so we want to strengthen families too. We just believe that it actually starts with dads.
I don't want to go deep into it, but coming from a split household and having basically two different families, one, I am emotional. It's just innate. It's who I am. But two, my mom and my stepdad were very instrumental in creating a safe place to express yourself about
Yeah.
whatever happened or what's going through. So we'd have family meetings in the living room where we would discuss whether you're in trouble, why you're in trouble, how does this make you feel. An open communication and pathway, I think, help create who I am today, and good and pros and cons. Like,
Yeah.
I can be too vocal, I can be too emotional,
Yeah.
but I think I'd rather be that way than the caveat and be an introvert and process
Yeah.
everything internally, and then it come out in other poor ways that I think it does with a lot of men.
Yeah, and I think that even speaks to one other part of this, because I think with an emphasis on allowing dads to be vulnerable, to share struggles, to expose those things to people in their community, it also has the tendency to become something like just an outlet to whine and an outlet to just bitch about all the bad things in our life. And so there's a healthy balance there, because sure, we want to build up dads, we want to encourage dads, we want to strengthen dads, but we also want to challenge dads, because there's sometimes that dads need to be straightened up a bit, and even me. And there's some times where I need to be challenged and not just use this space as a place where I just come and just whine about all the difficult parts of my life, because there are some elements of, again, two are better than one. They have a greater return for their work. If one man falls, sometimes I'm just helping them up through encouragement. But the Bible also says the wounds of a friend can be trusted. And so true friends actually challenge their friends when maybe their friend actually needs to be challenged a little bit and step up and even be confronted in some ways. And so there's a delicate and respectful way to do a lot of that. Our goal is to actually model that to the culture, because there's some times where dads have just come in and done exactly what I just described. And it's, hey, bro, let's talk about this. We want to actually strengthen you and encourage you, but we also want to challenge this mindset that you have that's just like poor pitiful me, or everything's the worst in my life, to where if your attention is on yourself all the time, if you magnify all of your struggles, then you actually perpetuate struggle in your life and even begin to struggle more, and it just becomes a cycle. So we want to pull dads out, whether it's through encouragement or even sometimes through confrontation if necessary.
Kevin, are you trying to confront me about anything?
I was trying to set that up because I got some things to say. No, I'm just kidding.
A lot of the talk about Dad Squad has been like obviously lifting them up or bringing them out of their shell, talking about the uncomfortable. But for the audience out there, for dads that don't find that easy to do, a lot of your events as well is just, hey, we're dads just hanging out, playing poker, meeting at cigar lounges and stuff like that. I think that the DFW Dad Squad from A to Z has a lot of options for a lot of different dads out there. And it's just sometimes getting out of the house. If you don't have that friend that you can call and go watch a football game with, I think you guys are really good at putting together those events for dads that just got to scratch that itch. Let me go hang out with some new guys.
And we try to be sensitive. This is totally foreign to me, because I'm just like, oh, hanging out with dad, that sounds amazing. Let's go. Sounds fun. Let's go do it. There's a lot of dads where that's super intimidating, and it's very outside of their norm and very uncomfortable. And it's funny, we've had events where we've had lurkers, to where people will show up in secret, sit at a different table just to see what is this about before I'm actually going to go participate in this thing. And so we're trying to alleviate that to create a comfortable atmosphere. Some of the ways we do that is just actually by taking pictures and taking videos of the events, so that we post those things and people are like, oh, cool, a dad event, but that sounds like a bit much to me. It's a little anxiety inducing to think about. And then it's, oh, you see a picture of us all just chilling together and playing poker, like you said, or just relaxing, or videos of us kind of playing back and forth, just to help create the expectation of what a lot of these events are going to look like. Because it's not all sit around in a circle and powwow and let's go around the room and talk about all of your struggles. And I think it could easily be perceived that way if we don't also magnify how much fun we have and how we're just dads having a good time and being dads and enjoying each other's company. So we're trying to overcome that. We see more and more attendance at events, but I think that's a barrier that sometimes it's foreign to dads a lot of times to be able to go and meet these random strangers you've never met before and have a good hangout with them. But then once they're there, they love it.
Kevin, do you see me showing up by myself to Dad Squad and meeting people that I don't know?
Taylor is very much, if you're not in his circle, like growing up, if we would invite friends from outside the circle to an event that he was at, who's this guy?
Yeah.
But he's gotten a lot better about it, being a dad now. He's formed relationships with the baseball dads on his team and guys outside of his circle now. But yeah, growing up is pretty tough for.
I feel privileged to be here now.
I still got to figure it out before, because even it took me, I don't know, maybe half the season even open up to the dads on the team of my son's baseball team. Even then, I was still recluse and processing things, because
Yeah.
I don't know these guys and I don't know how much I want to open up myself to them, and then their perception of me, because I'm already a bigger guy and I give off the asshole vibe. I don't want to open up to any assholes that I'm not aware of, because it just creates more problems for me internally, and I don't want to deal with that. So it's funny you say that, because I could resonate with that feeling
Yeah.
very much. I wouldn't find myself coming to it because I wouldn't feel comfortable meeting new people I'm not really aware of. And then I don't know how that would go about for me. So I'd probably be alert.
Now you know me, so you can
Yeah,
come with
yeah,
me.
yeah.
I'll introduce you to everybody. It's a lot of fun.
So talk about your dad, obviously. How many kids? What age are they?
Yeah.
What activities are they involved in? And how involved are you with them being a single parent?
For sure. Single parenthood is hard. It's difficult. There's a lot of joys to it, but I have 3 kids, 11-year-old daughter named Hadley, an 8-year-old son named Rivers, and a 3-year-old son named Manny, Emmanuel, but we call him Manny. And so I love dad life. It's my favorite part of all of life. And when my kids are home, dad, that's all I do. And that's on purpose. Thankfully, I'm in a position where I can actually have space for my kids. And then when they go, it's like time to work. It's time to just dedicate all my time to work stuff. So I'm glad that I have that balance there, that I'm able to be a present dad when they're home, while also when they're gone, I'm able to actually commit to spending a lot of hours working to do all the things that we need to do from that perspective. But kids are in volleyball, and Saturdays are crazy, normally like 5 or 6 games on any given Saturday. Volleyball for my oldest, and my son plays baseball and football, has 2 baseball games every Saturday, 1 football game every Saturday. And my toddler, Manny, the cutest, he's playing t-ball right now, and you all know it's hilarious. It's hardly sports. It's just like fun activity, but it's super fun to watch. And he runs like a weirdo. So it's in a super cute way. So it's a lot of fun, but there's a lot of challenges to single dadhood for sure. There's a lot of joys. I think our house is filled with peace and laughter and joy and love. And the kids know that, and I know that. And so there's a whole lot of peace. There's also just additional levels of responsibility, because it's, you got to take them to school, you got to get them back from school, you got to cook, you got to clean, you got to do laundry, you got to do literally every responsibility that is normally divided up between 2 partners in a home now just falls on one person. And so it can be overwhelming without a doubt. And I've had to just realize it's okay if I'm not getting to everything. My kids are happy. They're wonderful. They're loving my home. They have so much peace there. And so even if it's like, I didn't get to laundry today, it's cool. We'll be fine. We will be good. If I need to cook up ramen noodles every once in a while, I love to cook, so I generally prepare fancy meals because it's just a joy for me. But sometimes, dude, y'all need ramen noodles tonight. I need a break.
Just to clarify, it's hard for me to watch the kids one night alone when mama's away. So I couldn't imagine doing it full time. So hats off to you. I get stressed out, overstimulated, overworked. I feel and also appreciation for my wife who does it every day. So it's a different mindset, a different mentality to be able to tackle that daily. So thank you, Samantha. I love you dearly.
Shout out.
Good job, Joe.
Yeah.
And then from the chores aspect, I have some chores in the house, but my wife does a lot of it. So
Yeah.
I know she feels underappreciated, but like when I hear the other side of the coin on what you're going through, it's Kylie, I got to do more laundry. I got to help out with the laundry more.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I think this is part of it too. There's a lot of attention given to single moms because of all the same reasons, right? The same things that I just described are applicable to single moms. And so a lot of our culture has this attention to support single moms. There's not much of that for dads that are single at all, even though it's pretty much most of the times very similar or almost the exact same level of difficulty for single dads as too. And sometimes dads have the kids less just because of our society, but I got my kids about 50-50, and so it's hard.
Not to mention, you don't have to go into this, but the financial struggle of a father that is divorced from child support that is paid, especially having 3 kids, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And then the house you have to provide for, the food, The economy is doing better, but not really since the war. Gas is
I paid $4.19 this morning. Like, crazy.
Yeah, that's terrible. I can see where there's definitely a darker side to that coin when it comes to single fathers and everything that you have to intake. Not to take away from single mothers at
Yeah,
all,
not at all.
but yeah. I probably just got a lot of hate in the comments, so forgive me.
Nah.
I'm ignorant to it all. Hey, easy, dude. These hats only fit so much of his head.
Yeah.
You're inflating his ego right now. For the
Uh,
viewers, we took a little break. Joe wants to see Kevin take his shirt off for the
Wow.
podcast.
Wow. Can we edit that part out too?
So talking about Taylor's past with a stepdad, talking about your situation with your kids, and again, without getting too much detail, what your ex-wife is going through. How open are you to the idea that there will be another male figure in your kid's life if that day comes, and what that relationship will look like?
Yeah. Really good question. A lot to unpack there, but surface level, I'm afraid of it. I'm not going to pretend like there's not fear associated with that. I don't fear being replaced. My relationship with my kids is really strong, and they see me as dad. I don't see them having the potential to see somebody else as a replacement dad. It's more just, I don't know this guy. I have no idea who this person is. And I've also been a part of blended families where I've even been sensitive as a stepdad figure myself, because I was in a blended family and I was married. And so there was a biological father to her ex, right? To the daughter of this relationship. And so I found myself having so much compassion for that man, because I was like, he don't know nothing about me. And I'm a good guy. I'm doing my best to try to take care of her and to bless her and to be available and to be present as much as I possibly can. But he don't know that, right? And so I actually found myself trying to take initiative to build a relationship with him, almost to settle his nerves as best as I possibly could, because that's a nerve-wracking situation for a dad that loves their kids and then some other rando who you don't know a lot about. And then also if some of the dynamics of what our relationship was about before and how that could potentially play itself out in that home when I'm not there to protect, it's really hard. It's something that's uncomfortable, but it's also something that, and I was talking about this last night at our discipleship group. If I don't surrender my kids to the Lord, I am their father. I've been asked to steward them as a father, but I'm less of a father to my kids than our Heavenly Father. And there's a verse in Matthew that says, if you who are evil are able to give good gifts to your children, then how much more is the Heavenly Father able to give to those who ask? I love my kids and I struggle. I sin. I wrestle with difficult things just like everybody else. But there's a perfect Father. And if even in that I'm able to give my kids really good gifts and bless them and teach them and love them, how much more is the one who was sinless, who is without fault and without any sort of blemish? There's a love that he has for my kids that is actually beyond the love that I have for my kids, which is hard to fathom because it's a lot. It's right. It's like, how is that even possible? I know and I'm aware of my own heart and my love for my kids. But if I see myself as the primary source for goodness in their life, then it would be more anxiety inducing than if I were actually surrender my kids to him, who have good plans for them to prosper, for them to have a hope, for them to have a future, for them to be loved and protected and nourished. And again, that doesn't mean I just sit back, cool, yeah, you got him. If I need to step in, I'll step in. I have a responsibility to do that. But ultimately, his desire for their good is what I would have to trust in that. And if I'm just relying on myself and then that's taken from me and given to somebody else, then it's just going to create so much anxiety for me.
So what I was going to say was to speak on you and me as a kid and your situation made me think of my stepdad, Joe, who had a very tough task whenever we were blended. I like the word you said, blended family, because I'm a territorial person. So for him to come into our lives, I remember one of the first things I told him was like, you're not my father. You're never going to be my father.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, the relationship that me and him grew and the person that the person he became to me, he was a father. He became my father. So for you to have that mindset, I think speaks a lot to you and your character and how you're raising your kids. So hats off to you. And Joe, I know you're here and you're not here, but I love you. And I know I told you how much I appreciated you, but that made me think a lot about my stepdad because he had a tough task. And my dad, who's very territorial and controlling, that was a tough task to grapple. Yeah, man, good for you. It sounds like your kids are in a good spot and you're doing the best for them. So it's not easy to be in that situation. Yeah, I tell Samantha if she ever smartens up and leaves me, that guy's in trouble. Or if something were to happen to me, I were to pass on, I don't know, even wherever I'm going, you're going to be haunted for sure.
Yeah.
That guy's going to be haunted. There's just no way.
Yeah.
That it's just the way I'm wired. And my son's so honorary where there's just no way another man would be able to, not that they are, but step in. It's just a hard task.
Yeah. Yeah, and I want to emphasize the word steward because when I say surrender to God, that could look like flippancy and just cool. I just completely forsake and sacrifice my role to steward them. And what I'm getting at is if it's appropriate for me to step in, if that were to ever happen, Lord willing, that doesn't ever have to happen, I will. Because I also have a responsibility to steward what's in the best interest of my kids. And if conversations are needed or a confrontation is needed, then I'll do those things. So it's not just like, cool, God, you deal with it. It's fine. Because we have a responsibility as well in that to nurture and protect our kids. And so it's right for you to have that mindset for your kids. I'm not saying at all that should be condemned because that's actually an appropriate level of love for a child that a father should have. And if at times it's necessary to step in, sometimes we have to do that for whatever's best for our kids. And so good on you. It's not just good on me for having this mindset to give these things to the Lord, but it's also a responsibility that we have. So good on you too.
Just to kind of backtrack here, how I came into contact with Joe is he's very outspoken with his religious beliefs on your social media, and it strikes a lot of conversation, good conversation. And in the beginning, over a year ago, whenever we were going through the process of finding out Dean's diagnosis, I reached out to you just asking for prayers. And one thing that I really appreciate is you would check in weekly. Hey man, how is it? Any update? How are you doing? You'd say prayers. It gave me hope. It made me feel hope. And I'm praying too, but a very hard and dark year for me and my family and my wife. And so thank you for that. But hearing you say earlier about leading your kids to God, who's a better mentor for your kids than God, I struggle with that now because my son is going to meet the maker before I am. And I do not feel good about that because it's not supposed to happen this way. And the uncertainty I have with my faith and God right now, I have more questions than answers, and I can't relish in the idea of him in heaven or the afterlife because it's not ideal, or it's not ideal. And a lot of the reason why I wanted to have you come on this podcast is to talk about that because we're in a terrible situation and I'm looking for God, but I'm not looking for God. I was meeting with a pastor. I need to reach back out to him to help save my faith and my relationship with God because it's been pivotal to me my whole life. And I'm not searching for him. I'm still talking to him. I still pray to him, but I don't search the word. I don't relish in the word right now because I don't know if it's going to give me clarity or peace. And you said something on Facebook. It was, does God allow illness and disease?
Or is it his will?
Is it his will?
Yeah.
And my answer was, just to give you a little background of like where my faith is. I know the world was created in sin. So when something like this happens, I don't think it's God's will that Dean had this disease that we had no idea we carried.
Yeah.
But what I struggle with the answer of, I do question God's will when it comes to miracles, and why not Dean? why can't we get that miracle? And I'm still holding on hope. I still pray for that hope. But the reality that I have is when that day comes, I don't know where I'm going to be at. And I don't know how to relish in the idea of God, or in this situation. I don't know how to have clarity in that. No,
Yeah.
I don't. I think about how I'm going to put to rest my son every day. And I don't know how to process. I don't know how. I can't believe that's a thing that we're living.
Yeah.
And I'm worried, like baptism. My son's not baptized yet. But the word, in theory, he doesn't need to be baptized because he is innocent and he is loved by God regardless. Depending on if you believe in, if you're Catholic or not,
Yeah.
that's a little gray area there. But yeah, I want to get him baptized for my own sanity. But if I believe in the word and I believe in God's love, then the baptism makes no difference on where he goes because he's innocent and he is loved and he is loved. He will be in heaven, but I don't know how to process that.
Yeah. Let me first say there's a lot there to unpack. I want to major on the majors. And I think I told you at the beginning, before we started today, my goal in coming today was to build you up. And so, first and foremost, when you talk about your struggles and your response to this, that's normal. So, if there's any sort of why can I not have a better response to what's happening right now, if you are in a state of condemning yourself because you can't get yourself to believe a certain way, just know that's actually the natural response of man for something like this. So I don't want you to feel like that if other people had this situation, they wouldn't struggle the way that you are right now. And the other thing that I want to say to that, because when we go through stuff like this, and I'll say this, especially if we don't have a really solid framework and belief about who God is, what he does, his goodness, then it would be easy for us to begin to attribute responsibility for something like this to him, which would affect our communion with him naturally. Because if it's like my son is this diagnosis, and even though with my mouth, I might say, I know this is not your will, I know you're not responsible for it. Sometimes that doesn't always align with what we might be believing about God personally, even though we might say something different from our mouths. So first of all, you're not alone. Obviously, your circumstance is unique. And so I don't want to dismiss the fact that this is somewhat isolated as far as it's not the norm, right? It's not the norm. But I also don't want you to feel like the way that your emotions are wrestling right now, that this is somehow just the product of you just not being tough enough or you just not being able to figure this out. And the part that I really want to emphasize, and this was helpful for me, different circumstance, when I was going through, without giving tons of detail, things that were incredibly traumatic for me. And I believed that God could stop it, but he didn't, and he wasn't. My automatic default was that you can, but you won't. Why would I talk to you? Why would I want to have communion with you when you see this? You know what's right. You know what's good. And you're sitting back, not doing anything about it. Of course, that would affect our communion with God to where it's like, do I want to get in the Word? Do I want to spend time with him? When there might be this underlying belief that he's somehow actually the one who's responsible for this. And that goes back to that question, is sickness and disease God's will? And I would wholeheartedly say, no, not at all. And a lot of people out there, and this is where it gets convoluted and mixed up to where people are like, God's sovereign, God's the author, he's the one who's the source of all things. And so therefore, it must just be his will for this little child to suffer the way that he is suffering. It is not his will. And I'll try to break some of that down to help alleviate. First and foremost, God lost his son, Jesus. And so he watched his son be brutally murdered and his life be taken from him. So I want to say to you that he sympathizes with you in your weakness, because he has also, and Hebrews 4 actually says this, we have a great high priest who can sympathize with us in our weakness, because he's been tempted in every way, yet without sin. Jesus specifically, Isaiah 53, it says that he's a man of sorrows who is acquainted with grief. And so grief is actually something that God himself experienced, which actually provided comfort for me, that this is not just God is out there and he's flippant and doesn't really care and he's not moving. He actually is familiar with this level of grief that you're experiencing. And so just like we were talking about earlier with when we're going through struggles and we feel like we're the only one who struggles, and then we realize everybody else or other people are actually sharing that same difficulty, that creates an opportunity for communion with those people. And so same way with God, to understand that he actually sympathizes with you and is very familiar with this level of grief himself. The hope in that is that it creates an avenue of a deeper communion with him, while also knowing that he is not the source of your child's pain. There's a little bit of theology to break this part down. A lot of times people use the story of Job, and I think many times, the majority of times, you use it incorrectly, because the story, as people tend to say it, goes like this. Satan was roaming around. Satan asked permission from God to say, hey, can I go hurt Job? And God's, yeah, you can. That's the general interpretation of that story. That's not what that story says. And some of it just requires a little bit of a framework, because you referenced the beginning where there was sin and there was fall. God gave Adam and Eve dominion. He created the earth. He then created Adam and Eve, and he gave them dominion over the earth. They sacrificed that dominion by disobeying God's word or God's command when he said, don't eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. When that dominion was sacrificed, it was transferred to Satan, to where now Satan actually had dominion over this world. Okay? And so why am I saying that? The reason why is because Satan, based on the fall, already had dominion to bring destruction to the world. And so when God responds to Satan, this is not saying, hey, yeah, it's cool. Go ahead and afflict my servant Job. God is faithful to the way he orchestrated to his word, to the way he orchestrated the world. And when dominion was transferred to Satan, Satan actually has that dominion, which really helped me in the midst of my pain, because it helped me reallocate who the source of this pain actually is. That it's not God himself just saying, cool, yeah, go hurt them. It's fine. I'll just stand back and let you do your thing. God was the one who could save Job. God was the variable who could actually provide rescue for Job, and not the one who is responsible for that by giving permission to Satan, because it's a permission that Satan already had as the God of this world, is what the Bible actually says. And then Jesus came. Jesus came and gave us that dominion. When he defeated death and he rose again, that dominion actually was taken from Satan and given to us, which this is the part where we can dig in a little bit more. And this is the really probably delicate part. I know I can talk forever, but is any of this kind of resonating with you or making you?
Yeah, but I don't feel like a servant, and I don't feel like I do feel like Job, but I'm not the servant that Job was.
Yeah. When I was praying for you on the way up here, I began to feel like, when I said my goal is to build you up, when there's a faith struggle, I wondered, and I was praying and asking God to reveal if this is potentially the case. And I think what you just said actually confirms a lot of what I was potentially thinking might be happening with you. This is less about a faith in God himself and more about your faith in yourself. And if you are viewing yourself to where your battle is just to get yourself to have more faith, rather than redirecting and placing your faith in God himself, if this is a battle of you individually wrestling with yourself as if, am I some failure? Am I not good enough? Is this because of me? Is this something that I'm actually responsible for because I'm not able to be a good enough servant for God? I'm not able to do the things necessary to save my son. When your attention is on that, Luke says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. You actually can become what you think about. And if all of your attention is on you just need to be better, and if you were the one that was better, then maybe your son would actually be rescued from this. That still produces so much anxiety. Same thing like providing. A lot of times it's, I'm the provider of my household. I'm labeled the provider of my household. If I see myself as the final provider of my household, I will be filled with nothing but anxiety because I know internally, I know innately that I personally don't possess the power to provide everything that my family needs. And internally, if that's the reality of who I am, and sure, we can work, we can do all the things, but God can take every bit of that away in just a second. So knowing that he's the only one who is the actual source of this bank to provide, which is much bigger than the banks that we rely on. We got these feeble little bank accounts compared to God who owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. He can take it away in a second. He can give it away in a second. If I trust that he's the one that's the provider, then suddenly I actually have a peace. And it's because I'm not relying on myself to be the one who saves this situation. And he's the one who's able to do it. You sounded like some of that resonates with you.
Oh, 100%. I think as men, going back to the beginning of this podcast, we all believe we are creators of our own destiny, right? To a degree, we control our paths. We are the provider, the protector for our family. Yeah, it resonates deeply with me. And then who I am and who I've been and how my life has evolved, for sure. I was holding back emotions there because that's exactly how I feel. I don't know how to not feel that way.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know how to let go. And
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
And that's a much better answer than just saying, yeah, I know the answers. Express the raw part of your heart, excuse me. I'd much rather like that just be thrown out on the table. I just don't know how to not feel this way. The Bible says, confess your faults one to another, and then you will be healed. And so bringing that stuff out in the open where it's just, yeah, I do resonate with that, but I don't have any idea how to not. I would imagine if I were in your shoes, I would not be feeling any differently at all. That I would place potential blame and responsibility and even place the outcome of this on my own shoulders as if I'm responsible for this. And if I don't do this right, it will be my fault that this didn't happen the way that you wanted it to. Jesus in Matthew 11, he says, come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. And he actually says, take my yoke upon you. You know what a yoke is? So like mules, they carry like baggage back then. A yoke is actually what you put over them. And so then they place all of the weight of everything that they're carrying. And then those mules carry the load of all the things that you are responsible to bring to whatever. He says, take my yoke on you and learn from it, because my yoke is easy and my burden is light. There's actually a light burden that's available to you when you remove your own yoke, which I think is often self-induced, to where the burden is so heavy on you because you are carrying your own yoke, as opposed to taking the yoke that actually makes it, again, not dismissing, this is just easy, just take Jesus' yoke and everything will be lighter. That is what he's saying. Well, but we have to believe that when we give him the burden and we place his yoke on us, that it actually can become lighter for us. And then there's still to be determined what the outcome is. But I can say that when you make yourself responsible for whatever outcome this is, that oftentimes there's even potential for you to get the most feared outcome because you are now the source of either protecting from that outcome or making a certain outcome come true. If you release that to him, and that's exactly what faith is. It talks about faith all throughout the scriptures. And this is a really delicate. Really, we've talked about this a little bit in some of our messages, that there was a woman with a bleeding disorder, and in the scriptures, a woman with a bleeding disorder, she had that disorder for 12 years. She had seen every doctor. She had taken every form of medicine. She had gotten all the remedies, and none of them were doing anything. And she heard about Jesus. She goes to the crowd where Jesus is. And I want to back up before I get to what happened, because it took her experiencing no healing at all when she relied on all the world's resources that were given to her in order to accomplish this version of healing. It actually says she was worse off than she was before. When she took all this medicine, when she relied on all the diagnosis and the doctors and the physicians, and that was her source for healing. It took none of that working at all for her to then redirect her faith to Jesus himself. And actually what happened is she dug through the crowds, a bunch of people trying to get to Jesus. She touched his cloak. And here's the cool part about this. She touched his cloak. And Jesus didn't turn around and say, "Oh, you touched my cloak, therefore be healed because of your faith." A lot of times it's interpreted that way, as if Jesus chose to heal her after he realized that she came to him for healing. It actually says his power left him. His power left him. And so there's almost this inadvertent healing that happened without Jesus first commanding, "You're healed" first. All she did was touch his cloak, and his power immediately went out from him and healed him even before he turned around. He did make a statement and say, "Your faith made you well." It was your faith that made you well. And so I do believe that God has actually set up our world to where faith itself, and again, not faith in yourself, not faith in your ability to do this, but that faith itself actually is set up to influence healing. Now, that's a difficult battle, because that's where you can get into, "Oh, if I don't have faith, it must be my fault," which is the very thing that we're trying to break against. But that's a matter of, if we redirect our attention onto the one who actually is the source of health, instead of on yourself to somehow achieve this certain outcome for your son, which, mind you, is a loving thing to do. You love your son. You don't want to see your son suffer. You're going to do everything in your absolute power that you possibly can to protect your son from this outcome, and even all the stuff he has to deal with leading up to it. You should do that. But if it becomes something that you rely on for his healing, as opposed to redirecting it to the one whose yoke is a lot easier, whose burden is a lot lighter, and the one who actually has the power to heal your son, it'll alleviate you from that responsibility of carrying too heavy of a weight on your shoulders.
Yeah, when you said yoke, I was thinking about eggs.
Yeah.
I
Yoke.
am, I am making light of it just because I don't know how to unpack everything
Yeah.
you just said. I understand what you said. A lot of what you're saying is what I'm going through. This is a therapy session, Batty Daddy episode 15
Yeah.
with Joe Crenshaw, mentoring. But I wanted to have this conversation publicly because with my faith background and other men out there, I think about like all the prayers I've had my entire life, and financial stability, job security, your children's safety and health. I feel like my prayers have been answered, and I'm just in an empty well now. And so now my prayers are just for protecting my family, and I don't like saying this because it makes me feel like I've given up on my son, but I am trying to protect my family in what we're enduring and going through.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that, I think, is trying to hold on to my faith and mentoring my son and helping my wife and the road we're on to find light at the end of the tunnel and see the light, because the sad truth to all this is that we're going to have to, we are going to live through this. And to what you're saying is that's, I think part of grief is you don't want to live through this. You don't want to have to endure this. No one said take the yoke. But again, I don't know how to do that. I don't know. That's part of the reason why I wanted to have this conversation is somebody that's so spiritually founded and faith driven. How do you do that? And in
Yeah.
is it seeking God's word? And it's not really a question. I'm just talking abroad here.
Yeah.
Is it maintaining prayer, maintaining steady conversation with God, which is what I'm trying to do? It's not easy. And even my son, I think, done a good job as so far is he'll lead prayers for Dean and we'll say a family prayer that he wants to say. But now he's at this age where the other day we were driving home and he was talking to me about heaven. Is heaven real? Sometimes I don't feel like it is. Yeah, it is real, but I'm also not backed with the support to be like, here's why it's real.
Yeah.
And I don't want to strip him of his fears and confusions, but I don't want to validate him, but I don't want to invalidate him.
I would say, I don't want to cut you off. Where you still going?
No, I'm just processing.
So when we discover these things, really the reality of what's happening is in your mind. First of all, not just in the secular world, but even in our church, we're given a lot of mixed signals about what's true about God. And if we operate from a place about maybe this is true, maybe this is true, I don't know if this is true, this could be true. When we have those mixed signals, they actually influence how we respond to things if we don't actually fully know what the truth is. Sometimes it's blurred lines. And so a lot of people, even in the church, when I ask that question, is it God's will that people would be sick and have diseases? There's a lot of people that think that it is. And so when we're faced with maybe it is God's will, maybe this is just something that God had planned and that he wants to do, and that therefore now he's the source of your son's sickness, when we're flooded with all these different perspectives that are generally built on people's experiences and their own opinions and not have a foundational root inside of the Word of God for what is actually true about these things, that's where we'll be tossed to and fro by the wind and the waves of the sea. James 1 says, if anyone asks, he must ask in faith without doubting. Being tossed to and fro by the winds and waves of the sea. It's this back and forth, like, I don't know, maybe I know, maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong, I don't know. The one who asks with doubt should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. And that doubt, we can then take that as a burden. Okay, I just need to not have doubt anymore. How do you not have doubt? Doubt is going to be a natural result of our human heart. Romans, I think 11 says, faith comes from hearing, and hearing comes from the Word of God. The only way that we can actually have firmness and steadfastness in what we believe to be true is to know what's true. And when I got 9 different things thrown at me about what might be true about this, then it's like, I'm going to get tossed back and forth. And I won't be able to be steadfast in the midst of trial and hold fast to what is actually the truth. Jesus is the truth, but that's discovered in the Word. And my goal in this is, and we can't do this all in one episode by any means, we can unpack some things. I want to show you what the truth is about God's Word. And even that question that I asked, is it God's will? Some people use this story, Nebuchadnezzar, where the 3 men go into the fire. I believe he is able, but even if he doesn't, I'm still going to worship you. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They say, but even if you don't, I still will. But a lot of times people interpret that as he might actually save us from this. That's not what they were saying. Even if this was something that you don't do, I will still worship you. But we know that this is what you do. And so when there was a boy who needed healing and they asked Jesus, are you willing? His response is, I am willing. A lot of times that willing means like, I might. It's something I'm willing to do, but you might still not know if that actually is the real outcome of what's going to happen. When Jesus says, I am willing, it's a capital W. which means it's a personal pronoun, which means he's saying willing is my name. Not, hey, this is something I might be willing to do. It is actually my nature to do this. This is who I am. So same thing, Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego weren't saying, even if you might not do this, I'll still worship you. They were saying, even if willing wasn't your name, even if this wasn't something that was about your character that you do, I would still not worship other gods, and I would bow down only before the God alone. So those kind of things, when they get twisted up, it's like maybe God might be willing to potentially do something like this, which then all that does is toss us back and forth. I still don't know an outcome. I still can't perceive an outcome because God might and he might not. I know what God does. I know that God is the author of healing. There's no other name under heaven by which we can be saved except the name of Jesus. I know that is in his character. I know that's what he does. I know that when we believe that, people are healed. And I've heard you a few times, and let me say this. I would probably feel the same way. So this is not to say like what I was saying a minute ago. Just toughen up, bro. You need to believe. Of course not. That's so dismissive. This is a real painful situation for you. But there's a little bit of you that I think has resolved that this is what's going to happen. And maybe a lot of you can speak to that. When you get diagnoses from doctors who are the supposed experts on these types of diseases, that can actually influence what you believe to be true, just as much as the Bible itself can influence what we believe to be true about who God is. These doctors do not have the right to say those things over your son, regardless of how much education that they have. That's a right that they don't get, because life and death are in his hands alone. It's not in their hands. It's not in the disease. It's not in the diagnosis. It's not in Satan's hands anymore. He has the power over all of life and death. And so, again, I would struggle with all of that myself. But if we accept this outcome, if we say to where now, like, I'm planning for this, which that's what a loving father does. Like, you're trying to shepherd the rest of your family through what might actually happen in this pain that you all might experience. That's love. It's no, love seeks the good of others. It bears all things. It endures all things. That's what you're doing. I'm not saying that's wrong. But if it's as a result of accepting an outcome that they never had the right to give to you and to speak over you, when he's the only one who, because if what we know is true, that he's the author of life, Dean was formed in your wife's womb. God knows he can number the hairs on his head. He knows every single one of those things. No matter where Dean goes, God will be there. This is the intimate. He was the one who formed your son in your wife's womb, which means nobody can snatch him from his hand. Nobody. He's the only one who actually is the source for life or death. It's easy for us to believe that God's the source of life. But when it comes to death, I'll believe these doctors because they actually know a lot more than me. They have this education. They've diagnosed this. They're smarter. They've seen this happen. But man, the stories that I have heard and know about and have seen with my own eyes about terminal things being completely removed in a second. I know you want that. I know obviously that's your primary goal for this thing, that God would save your son. It's actually helpful to hear those testimonies. Revelation says we overcome both by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimonies. So when you hear God healed this person miraculously and completely removed all signs of anything, and all these doctors were completely confused, I can't explain this at all. Why? Because death is not in their hands. It's not yours to say. They have to submit when God decides that he's going to save somebody miraculously, whether they like it or not, or regardless of all of their education. It's not in their hands. And that's the hard stuff. When they're telling you these things, and projecting an outcome for you, our tendency is to, I guess I have to believe what they're saying. I guess I have to accept this. I'm going a lot. What do you think?
No, I'm thinking, I believe and have believed that I think this whole path, and it's a lot of the arguments I've had with some doctors and the diagnosis of this. So there's only one treatment FDA approved for Dean. And we first found out symptomatic or pre-symptomatic. Pre-symptomatic means within the first 6 months of life that Lameldi could have been administered to him. But then you also have these conversations. Every kid reacts different to this drug, and the outcome's the same. The road may be a little different. So to me, when I heard that, and this has always been my mindset, Dean is Dean, and you can't dictate his road. And he's strong,
right.
and his will is strong. And I believed and still do in God's will through him to where the impossible can become possible.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things we're doing now is a prayer answered, but I know it's a prayer answered, but I don't feel like it's a prayer answered, because when I first got on a phone call with one of the neurologists that deals with this diagnosis and disease, I was crying. It was just on a video, and I don't know what you're telling me. Why is there anything I can do for my son? And we have this trial we're going through now to help with some of the symptoms and the swelling in his brain. But even yesterday we were in Houston, Dean is still, he's not doing good, but where he's at in this stage, I think he's doing really good. So the hope is there. It's not, I haven't given up hope, and I still have faith in a miracle. But to what you're saying too, it's also the reality of the world and the diagnoses like we've been given. It's hard to balance the two where hope and reality marry. It's weird. Yeah. And this has been a sermon, but it's something I wanted to have an open conversation with, because I think for most people in life that have a faith background, it's easy to have a strong grip on faith when your biggest challenges in life are job security, financial security, marriage stability, the health of your kids. I have this view of social media pisses me off because you move into a new house or you got a new job. It's God's will, and thank God.
Yeah, it's so hard for you.
Yeah, but what did God have anything to do with your house or your job? Or was that something that you sought out and it happened because that's what you wanted? You know what I mean? And that's where the anger in me builds, because there's nothing more in this world that I want to help and cure my son. And to some answer or degree, I have been able to do that. It is. There's nothing more that I want and prayed and strive for, that me and my wife strive for. And if my prayers are answered or not, I don't know if the conclusion I will have is to blame God, because to me, the reality is I know I've been to a lot of funerals, and I always have these questions. Is this person in heaven, or where is this person? There's no doubt in my mind where Dean will be. He will always be with us.
No doubt.
In our heart, in our blood, in our minds, in every aspect of life, he will always be with us. And I also know, with the faith that I have, that he will be with God.
No doubt.
And then the questions that I have, and this doesn't need to be answered now because it's a long road. And I've had this said to me where maybe this was God's plan to bring you closer to him. This is God's plan to have me. That's not the way I'm wired. That's not the way I work. And God knows that. But I'm also not a quitter. But I don't want my son's torture and demise to be my path to God.
No.
I'm
gonna kill your son so that I can get closer to you.
And that's not what I'm saying, but like when somebody's highest in the room. That's highest in the room. That's what the song is. It's funny. But in that being said, that's where I don't know what I'm getting on at. What you're saying resonates a lot. It's definitely something I think I needed to hear and wanted to hear. It's not a easy answer that'll be solved tomorrow, but it's something that I can work at. And I think a lot of how God has created me and how I am as a person is to work at being better. I don't know if I'm going to be better for this or not. Time will tell. And I think if we continue on this road, we're going to have another hour's worth of, and I'm not cutting you off by any means. Also, I don't want to, there's more questions that I have now than answers, and that's just how life goes. But I think to hit on what you said, yeah, my situation is very me driven with my faith. And I think that's a lot of how people align. But also, I have the foundations in my faith to where the result of this world is terrible, but the idea of my son and how I want to say this, the result for him is the best result, if that makes sense. Because our son is suffering right now. He is.
Yeah.
We are helping him with that. So, whatever end of this road we are on, it will be the best solution to it. Now, the solution that I want selfishly is for him to be healed.
It's not selfish.
For him, for us, for my oldest son, who has been nothing but the best big brother, who just wants to run around and play with his little brother. And to hit on a couple things here, I've kind of hinted at them before. I have asked for prayers, and prayers have been answered. And I do take them for granted. I think we take for granted prayers in every day's walk. And I always say I'd have boys. And I had 3 boys. Now I have 2. And when it's all said and done, I'll probably have 1. And I've been terrified of having a baby girl. And God blessed me with Tatum. And she is the joy in my life right now. So when I look at the path of life that we're on, and God gives you what you need, not what you want, I feel like that's why Tatum is here, because we're going through something so terrible, and she is just this independent, jovial little girl that I've always been terrified of having because of the protector that I am. And to watch her grow and thrive reminds us of the joy Dean has been stripped of, and we have been stripped of as parents, to this idea of life that we had ventured out to us, to what we're going through now. It's not taken for granted, but it's just not enjoyed to the level that it should be. Yeah.
One thing, I think this is a good resolve. Before I came this morning, you sent me a video. And maybe you can even plug this video in because it correlates to what I'm about to say. It was from The Chosen. It was the Roman soldier begging Jesus to heal his son. And you said, I feel a lot like this. And a lot of his attention was, I'm not worthy.
Yeah.
I'm not worthy. And the best part about that whole story, Jesus healed his son despite his unworthiness. Because what he was saying was not untrue. Based on tradition at that time, that would be something that would be declared as unworthy. And so even in spite of that Roman soldier's declared unworthiness for Jesus to choose to heal his son, he still had faith and believed that he would, and Jesus did. It does not require you to be some perfectly worthy servant who's got all of this stuff figured out in order for Jesus to heal your son. And what he did, he took his attention off of his unworthiness and put it on to Jesus himself and said, I know you don't even have to come to my house. You don't even have to come. You can literally just say the word and he'll be healed. And he said, it's done. He's healed. And so obviously that speaks to Jesus's power of healing over life and death. But it also speaks to Jesus does not require you to be worthy for him to choose to heal your son. So in the midst of your feelings of unworthiness, don't try to go to a place where I've got to establish worthiness in order for healing to be accomplished in my son. because he'll do that even despite of us. God has changed so many outcomes for me when I don't really deserve it. And a lot of the times in the midst of those things, I'm like, it probably won't happen because I'm not really doing what I need to do for this to happen. And he chose to do it despite me. And that's where the peace that can come from, you don't got to have it all figured out in order for this to happen. Because once you believe that God has the only authority over life and death and that he can speak, it says he opens his hand and satisfy the desire of every living thing. All he has to do is open his hand. Every living thing's desire is satisfied when God opens his hand. That's all he has to do. He speaks and the whole earth obeys. And Jesus was asleep in the boat. We know the story. Jesus is sleeping in the boat. The disciples are there. It's in the midst of this treacherous storm. The wind and waves and these aren't boats like our freaking sweet boats that we have today. This is like a little baby-made canoe that might have holes in it or whatever. The best they had. They're out in the middle of a treacherous storm and Jesus is asleep. Disciples are confused. Why are you sleeping? Look at this. There's a storm. Why are you asleep? Jesus stands up, speaks, just says a word. The earth was created by God just speaking a word. He spoke and the earth was formed into existence, which also means when he speaks, the whole earth now still has to obey him. He spoke and they said, who is this man that even the wind and the waves obey him? If we believe that God only has to just say a word and now the wind and waves stop completely, because we know he's the one that spoke and brought it into existence, like your son, he also can speak. Just say a word, just open his hand and satisfy the desire of every living thing. It just takes his word, and this is done, no matter what any of the doctors say. And you'll wrestle with hope, and that's okay. But my encouragement to you would be to fight to relieve yourself of the pressure and the responsibility of this outcome. And that can actually even influence the outcome when we surrender this thing to the one who actually has the power to save your son. And I believe your son will be healed. I know that can feel insensitive. I don't want that to sound like, oh, thanks, bro.
Yeah.
Cool. It's not really helpful. I could see how that feels unhelpful. But I've also begun to know and see and experience the power of God on display and watched it and seen it and therefore begin to believe that this is what God does, God does this. These are stories that are very frequent and very prevalent. And it just sometimes takes us redirecting our attention off ourselves and onto him.
Amen.
No, I just want to say, I know that a lot of this conversation was between Joe and Taylor, and that was scheduled that way. Joe, again, as someone that we don't know on a personal level really before this, just kind of social media and conversation and text, he brought a lot of value and a lot of information and a lot of discussion that Taylor needed to hear. Last episode, Taylor, it was the first time that he really opened up about the Dean situation, and then we followed it up with this, with you. So I think that Taylor appreciates it. I think a lot of our listeners will understand what your message was and stuff like that and appreciate listening to it. So I know I was quiet over here. I was listening. I was engaged. But yeah, I think that it was definitely a great message for Taylor. I'm not in your shoes.
No,
I think that Joe has a very good way of explaining things. And I'm like you, like, why is this happening? Why did Dean get picked for this? And you even said that there's a lot of guilt on your shoulders. Did I create this for Dean? Am I the one to blame? And I think Joe had a different approach of just saying, hey man, it's not your fault. But a lot of his messages were saying that in short term, you can't put all the burden on yourself. So I do feel like that hopefully that lifted some weight. It's not going to lift the ultimate what happens here, and he brought some, I think, optimism. I hope it's not false optimism, but he did bring a different approach to it. Just not saying, hey, everything's gonna be okay. but he brought some belief behind it as well, and a lot of messages.
I started with a verse about Dad Squad. Two are better than one, greater return for their work. One falls, the other can help him up, but pity the one who falls and has no one to help him. And you said a second ago, some of the content of today maybe is helpful to lift some burdens from you. I would say, and I'm sure you've been this, you have a much greater opportunity to carry burdens for Taylor than I do in 1 hour on camera. And we talk outside of this for sure. But that's what friends do, is carry each other burdens. I know you're already doing that, but also just you being here next to him is a greater level of power to support him than even some of the stuff that I can say today. So keep doing that, because you can't do this stuff alone.
But he's in really good shape right now, so he can carry me.
Yeah. You
I
can
squatted yesterday.
When's
carry
his
your
shirt coming
burdens.
off, dude?
s-
Come
I
on.
squatted yesterday, so I'm ready. But yeah, to answer that question, I know I wasn't as engaged. I felt like it was definitely more directed to what you're going through directly, but I needed to hear it too, as your support as well. So awesome message. So this weekend, to wrap up the episode, is Mother's Day. We will probably not publish this episode before Mother's Day, but it's a lot of editing, and dude, I just don't have the time sometimes to edit in a day. Anyway, what is it hard to shop for Mother's Day for your mother? Well, you just talked about your mother. So is it hard to shop for mothers out there, or is this an easy holiday to shop for your wife?
And we're going to lose this one too. The good question I have is, do you help your kids for their mothers and planning for their Mother's Day?
Every time.
Yeah.
I don't get the same thing from that side. But it's important for my kids to buy gifts for their mom, even if she's not my wife. And I take them shopping. And sometimes I wish that were the case for me, but it's not.
That's
But
okay,
I'm
though.
still going to do it.
You're still going above and beyond. My dad never encouraged me to do anything for my mom.
Yeah.
Mother's Day.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm also really bad at buying gifts. I suck terribly at that. I care a lot about people, what they like, all the things. But when it comes time to buy it, it's just like fog.
It's a lot of
I don't
pressure.
have any idea.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure throughout the year. When my wife will make a note or a remark about something, I'll go into my notes on my iPhone, and I'll put a note, her gifts, and I just create a list. Okay, that's what she likes. That's what she
See,
likes.
there you go.
That way, later on in the year, whenever a holiday like this or her birthday comes up, I'm already prepared. Okay, that's what she says she liked 5 months ago.
So what are you doing for Mother's Day? Is it a gift, or is it a day of trying to relinquish her of responsibilities and just giving her a day of gratification and relief, or is it a gift?
Yeah, I feel like in the past, it's been more focused on trying to make her day more about her. And like you said, hey, go shopping for a few hours, get your alone time. But honestly, I think she wants to spend it as a family. So relieving her of her mother's duties on Mother's Day, I don't think she really wants that. She still wants to be a mom on Mother's Day. It's more about just showing the appreciation. So this year, I am excited about the gift I got her. I feel like it's actually a really good gift, and it's one of those smart calendars. I think that maybe you guys have one. So we have a calendar. We erase it every month and redraw, and one of those smart calendars, because she's very organized. So it's thinking outside the box a little bit and improving her day to day, which she's very much black and white. I have to have everything organized. So I hope I knock it out of the park.
You're going to. Sounds like.
Yeah, I'm a procrastinator. I still haven't gotten Samantha anything, but she already says what she wants to do for Mother's Day, so I have that aligned. I'm a last minute shopper at freaking everything, so I'll probably buy something on Sunday.
Target.
I actually just had a really good idea that I think I'm just gonna go and get tomorrow. Actually, yeah.
Say it, because this
Oh,
is
yeah.
going to be aired after Mother's
She
Day.
just had a back electric mop that went out. So I'm gonna get her a new one. That's a terrible Mother's Day.
You're
Here,
encouraging her to clean
let
more.
me
Like, hey,
encourage-
this thing went out. Here's a new one. Keep cleaning.
I'm gonna ask her to clean the floors off.
This is why we process these things out
No, I'll
loud.
clean the floors on Mother's Day while she's out doing her thing.
I cleaned it with this new mop that now you have to use.
But she's been wanting one.
Yeah,
so
I
I'll get her
know.
a nice one. Hopefully it doesn't go out in 3 years. But yeah.
That's funny.
That's what my wife tells me: is do not buy me something that's going to improve my cleaning or improve my cooking. That's not what I want. But hey, dude, I've done it too. So
Get you a new stove, get you a new
Yeah.
washer and dryer, get you a new dust mop, all the
Yeah.
things.
Damn, that sounds so terrible.
definitely not.
But she will appreciate it. She'll love it. And Samantha she's very controlling on how she has the house and how she wants it clean. I never do it right. So it's a lot of the reason why responsibility is relinquished of me because she gets mad at me when I do it wrong.
Yeah.
And I don't know, her love language is a gift. So I have to get her a gift. But on Mother's Day, I don't like getting her a big gift. And the ideas of a big gift that I want to get her is, man, I don't know if this is the time to do that. I don't know when to do it.
For a while, I was doing give her a break, send her to go get a massage or something. I'll take care of the kids, whatever. Because then it felt like that's what sometimes they want the most. It's not necessarily a thing, but just give me 4 hours on an afternoon by myself.
Yeah.
Like, for real. Sounds crazy.
Do your shameless plug.
If you don't have a gift and it's already too late because it's going to be posted after Mother's Day, we have some baddie hats here. So that's always a good gift for Mother's Day or I guess up here for Mother's Day or for a birthday coming up, Valentine's Day in the future, Christmas, whatever the case may be. So we have some merch here. We got some more coming for you guys. We had an event a couple weekends ago here local. We went and had a booth, sold about half our inventory. It was a great show. A lot of new Batty Daddy fans out there, so we appreciate that. Joe?
Spotify now?
Yeah, we are starting
nice.
to download on Spotify now. We're still trying to work. We're still growing as a brand. We're doing this all internal, the two of us. So we're still figuring this out. But awesome episode, Joe. We appreciate it.
Man,
That's
thank
some
you
good
guys.
stuff.
Thank you guys.
And then before you leave, you get one of these and Batty Daddy, episode 15.
Daddy, man.
Let's roll. Thanks, guys.